like I'm forgetting something along the way. The point is, this is a whole build of lots of new features that are giving the end-to-end workflow-based precision that we need. So today we are talking conversation starters. So to start off, let's think about the context here. Doug, what are conversation starters going to do for us in the context of our Marketing OS drive?
Yeah, so if we start kind of from the baseline of what we're trying to achieve with conversation starters, it's almost there might be times when you come into Pencil and you kind of have two different paths. One is you have a document or something that has a very clear outcome that you're trying to achieve. Basically, hey, I know exactly what I'm trying to do. I just want to jump into Pencil and get started on it. But maybe you don't know quite how. So that's one. The other is I'm coming into Pencil and I almost want to explore what are some of the things that I haven't done that I might
Mhm.
want to do and explore with an agent. It could be anything from, some type of insight that you want to dive deeper on. Maybe
Yeah.
it's develop better personas or anything like that. Um, Conversation starters essentially helps users when they come to Pencil get started really quickly and give them a path to identify what type of agents could I or should I maybe be working with to either go directly into this execution mode of I know the project that I want to start with, but I don't know quite how,
Mhm.
or I don't have anything specific in mind right now, but I want to use Pencil to potentially explore some new ideas
Yeah.
that are very relevant to my workspace and the user role that I have inside of my organization on the Pencil platform.
Fantastic. And I mean, I can tell you from a education perspective, a lot of our clients love what the platform can do. They're so excited that it can do so much. But the fact that you can do so much in Pencil can be a blocker. It's like when you get a restaurant menu and you just don't know what to do because there are so many choices. And I guess this is kind of giving that suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. It's very likely that you can run into decision fatigue, right? Like
Mhm.
to your point, there's just so much to do that you don't know where to start. But hopefully, this could be this entry point to actually get started quicker, but then also wrap your head around how to think about actually working with agents. It's becoming like an increasing trend, I think, all over the AI space, right? Of agentic kind of workflows, and this will help you kind of understand how can I work with specific agents, what are they really good at, and how should I maybe structure the prompts as I start working with them to ensure that I actually get the value out of what I'm trying to do.
Mhm. So thinking about the value of that first prompt, how does in fact, let's think about it negatively. How does a poor quality first prompt affect the quality of a whole workflow?
I would say quite a lot because it is your starting point. Not saying that you can't correct it along the way, but um, it's essentially your prompts are essentially the guide to the agents or the model, right? Essentially saying this is what I'm trying to do, and you give it somewhat of specific instructions of something that you're trying to get in return. And the better you can actually construct your prompt, the better the output will be. So it's really like quality in, quality out type of thing.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I know for myself, especially as I got started on Pencil and using kind of models in general, trying to get it to do what I wanted to do, I didn't quite know where to start. You kind of just get almost like a freeze moment where your brain just blanks out and you're like, oh, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. And you ask something, and it's so generic and not specific that again the output kind of match what I put in. And having this starting point of essentially helping you say, okay, if I take a step back, this is what I'm trying to achieve. and how I can structure my prompt to the right agent to essentially get that conversation started, so I can actually steer or guide that conversation into the direction that I'm trying to go, rather than, hey, I'm not quite sure as I'm going to be super generic, and then I'm really not going in any specific direction. I'm kind of circling around the problem.
Hmm.
Or um, I might be using the wrong agent, telling it something that it might not be well suited to do. And I have a good prompt, but I'm actually sending it to the wrong agent, going down the wrong path for that reason.
Perfect. So with our new conversation starter feature, how do we ensure that those starters are going to be genuinely useful?
Um, so we're doing our best to essentially ensure that we understand what the user might want to do. And earlier I was talking about these two different paths. So when you come into the home page of Pencil, you will see a little drop area where you can drop a document. What we will do is ingest that document and try to understand what is the objective of the document and what are you trying to achieve. Based on that, we then try to match the outcomes to an agent that is well suited to go and actually do something about, let's say, the brief that you have dropped there. So we try to match it to an agent. If you're trying to create social media ads, static ads for a specific channel, we can match it with an image generation agent that can do that, or a static social ad agent that can go and start create those assets. Um, on the other side, if you don't have a particular document or brief that you come in with, and you might just want to start somewhere, um, we look at your workspace, basically what brand is it that you're on, what are you working on, what is your user role within
Hmm.
Pencil, and based on that, what might be some interesting insights that we're seeing for your brand in particular that you might want to explore. And it could be anything from general trends that is
Yeah.
going on in the market to specific areas that might not have been created on your workspace. Again, maybe exploring personas, exploring new ideas that can turn into campaign ideas and then later go into production. Something that is a little more generic, um, but still personalized to your brand and what you're most likely would be working on.
Perfect. So would you characterize these conversation starters as a forced pathway, or would you think of them more as nudges in the right direction?
Probably the latter there. So I would say it's more nudges.
Hmm.
And at any given point, you can kind of take over the conversation, right? So if you actually don't want to use those and you want to prompt specifically to either you want to switch an agent or you want to tweak the prompt, you can do so yourself and kind of override and take over manually and take the conversation forward. It's meant as a help to think about that entire workflow of what you might be doing. So if you come in and you start with some form of insight and then you want to turn that into a campaign idea, that campaign idea might then go into some form of image generation to basically what is the concept of the campaign idea. The
Hmm.
conversation starters are there to help you think through and guide you through that entire flow to essentially get to an endpoint where you tie it all together into this final thing that you might then want to go and produce against. So I would say you're not locked in. It's there to help you. It's almost there to spark some ideas. And at any given point, and I think as you get more comfortable working with agents and how to prompt them to get the output that you want, you're actually going to take maybe the conversation starters or the next actions as suggestions that
Hmm.
might spark ideas for you to then actually build on top of rather than clicking through. Not saying that you can't click through because that's kind of the goal of it, but
Yeah.
it's more there for a starting point.
Perfect. So, like so many features on Pencil, there are going to be different ways of deploying this. And I think what we might end up seeing is highly creative, skilled users taking the guidance, learning from the conversation starters, building their own methods around what they've seen, whereas other users might take it as stricter guidance. Particularly if we were looking at kind of marketing flows, you might see a bit more of a skeleton to an idea versus I've run out of words. Some kind of wibbly wobbly skeleton for someone taking a more creative approach. I'm really fighting bad analogies at the moment as well. I'm going to have to drop in a Winter Olympics analogy at some point in here, but we'll save that for the end. So, this is a really good way of kind of reducing overwhelm. Are there any other ways that this will improve a first-time user experience in the platform?
I want to say yes, but it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think it's more to actually help you get started. And I think it also can help you think about how you potentially string agents together into this workflow that you then can specify to how you want them to work. So if you take conversation starters inside of a chat, right? Because that's where they live, where you have a conversation and you kind of go from agent to agent with this overarching goal in mind. You can then very easily take that approach and say, hey, I think I've figured something out here. When I do these actions in a specific order, working with these specific agents, maybe I can carry that over to a workflow. So now you can start taking the ideas from conversation starters and how you work through a problem with multiple agents and maybe start mapping that out on an actual workflow. And that then gets built into a repeatable workflow that you can share with colleagues, and they can kind of see, oh, this is how you use it. You prompted the agent in this way, you got this output, you leveraged the output for the next agent to use that as context, and you kind of enrich the conversation as agents put things together. And I think that's a powerful way to probably leverage this, in the sense of it helps you get started, but then you can actually take what you get out of that conversation and apply it to other areas of the product and actually build it out and make it more rich.
Perfect. So I'm getting the position of conversation starters within the workflow. I was talking recently to Ali about mini forms. There's definitely some overlap in what mini forms and conversation starters are seeking to achieve. What's the difference between them?
I think that's a great question. I would say the biggest difference is miniforms is meant to be a very prescriptive way of working with agents, essentially saying use this specific logo as a logo, use this specific image as a reference, maybe use this specific product image and swap it with this fourth image that I have. So now you can attach 4 images into your miniform, be very prescriptive of how to use each of those images in your prompt, and the output will then be closely matching to most likely what you're trying to get to. It should ideally be a one-to-one match, right? But that essentially puts more control into the user of working with the agents to ensure that, hey, it's really adhering to my brand and how I want it to work. It's ensuring that the right reference images are being used in the right way, whether it's a style reference or it's an actual subject reference that you want to swap, etc. So the form is there to really be very prescriptive when working with agents for the output that you want. Conversation starters, on the other hand, is, I would say, more loosely based on, it's supposed to be more like a conversation. It might be, hey, we're going down this path, and used the example before, but let's say I'm talking to an agent about a campaign idea, and we go on there, and then I get some response back. In the conversation starters within the chat, you will see suggested next actions, which essentially also is conversation starters, but you might have the static ad agent suggest that, hey, why don't we create some ads based on this campaign idea, so you can start to get an idea of how this might come to life. And that's how you would use conversation starters. So it's almost like a little more loosely based. It might not be as rigid in terms of use this logo, use that. It's almost to get a quicker sense of having more of a conversational dialogue back and forth with an agent or multiple agents, to start putting it all together. And then you can take all of that information again and really flush it out. Maybe you, again, pipe it into a form where you say, here's the campaign idea, here's the output that I got based on the campaign idea. now I actually want to take this. I want to use this specific logo. I want to use this specific product image in it and use this concept image that I created as a reference, and then add some prompt, right, of what I'm trying to achieve, and then you should get something much more specific than you might get from conversation starters that is more to kind of help you along the way of exploring and executing against an idea.
Perfect. Now, I promised a Winter Olympics analogy. I'm kind of seeing this as mini forms are like the walls, the edges of a curling sheet. Bear with me, I love curling at this time of year.
Okay, let's hear it.
And conversation starters are working with the user, both acting like curlers, using those brushes, gently guiding and nudging the stone towards the objective. Okay, I managed.
I like that. I like that. I'm also really into curling at the moment because I'm American, but I'm born in Sweden, so we have that whole controversy with Canada going on where I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm on the Swedish team, but then I'm a American. It's a little bit love-hate with Canada and the controversy of that. So diverging a little bit, but yeah, I'm into curling at the moment. I like
I
your
never thought
analogy.
this stream would get into the geopolitics of the Winter Olympics.
I'll stay out of the politics. I just couldn't help myself.
So we've gone quite in detail here. So we've thought user experience on conversation starters. For our enterprise customers, how is this rollout going to help them? What becomes more strategically possible?
I think that when you have, let's say, a document or something rich, you essentially have some form of either it's a clear idea of what you're trying to achieve, or maybe it's more like, hey, I have all this contextual information. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. I think the conversation starters can be really helpful from a strategic point of view in that way. I think a lot of organizations have a lot of rich information, and at times you're not quite sure how to leverage it to actually improve what you're doing in the market. It could be certain campaign ideas, but it can also be like more strategic positioning or expanding to new audiences or target customers that you're trying to go after. I think leveraging conversation starts by uploading those documents as context for a conversation can be really helpful of turning somewhat loose-based information and really connecting the dots into something that can turn in to something very tactical that hopefully will, generate something on the back end of it. So from a strategic point of view, I would say you can start to really harness the information that you have and turn it into something that you might not have thought of otherwise. So it's almost a new way of unlocking potential ideas based on insights or data that you have accessible to you right now, much faster.
Fantastic. I think the other thing that could be a huge transformation from this is organizations need capability. And so much of that capability in AI and even within using Pencil is very specialized. So I was talking to Jules yesterday about the need for prompt engineers and agent architects as this entirely new set of roles in a creative workflow. I suppose that's never going to work if they are the only people who can conceive of and enact a system like this. So what's occurring to me immediately is the way that conversation starters can kind of level that playing field. You still rely on that real skill from those particular human roles, but you don't have an entire system that's dependent on one or two highly skilled prompters.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think you will not get away from the fact that you will need the specialized workers that kind of know how to do this right, like in a very systemic way. But to your point, it can maybe even serve as a help to guide them, because ultimately you're merging two kind of ideas in the sense of there might be someone that knows this is what I'm trying to achieve, but I'm not quite sure how to get there by stringing agents together and prompting them in the right way. And there's another person that actually knows how to do that, but might not have the context of, what are we trying to achieve? Marrying the two there could be really powerful in actually getting the right systems in place, working the way you need to for your specific kind of marketing OS, right? And then getting to the point where you actually can start getting the output that you're looking for. And I think having conversation starters help on one area. You can start again to flush out the rough idea and then take it to someone that might have those specific skills in terms of the system thinking and prompt engineering and all of that, and basically say, this is what we're trying to achieve. Here's almost like the rough outline that I have based on this conversation. You can see where I'm getting to. Can we make this more replicatable? Can we kind of get access to this to a broader team? And they can probably take that and start saying, okay, I can see how I can start building a system around this that can be reused over and over to ensure that we get the consistent outputs that we're looking for with the level of details that are needed in order for assets to actually be taken out of pencil and be put into market.
Perfect. Right, we're not far off our time on this call. What I really want to do is make sure that anyone who's currently using or anyone who wants to sign up to Pencil in the imminent future has a way to start. So if someone is watching this and wants to start immediately, what's the best way in?
We do have kind of a self-serve approach, right, where you can actually sign up for an account with Pencil. It is a limited amount of generations that you get from that for free, but you can purchase a minimum plan. It starts at $14 a month, I believe, and that will give you enough to actually just give it a go. So I would say that is a really good way to just at least start exploring it and see what you can do. There is some level of effort that are needed to get probably to the outcome that you want to, right? It goes into setting up your brand, maybe building out a few templates, ensuring that you have the right assets in the library and all of that. And in order to ensure that you set it up correctly, I would refer to all of the amazing training videos that you and your team has put together. There's a rich library of essentially some basic Pencil 101s to more specific feature-based educational videos that I would probably refer to in conjunction of playing around with the tool itself.
Fantastic. I promise I wasn't trying to guide you into digging up, but it's always nice to hear. Right, I'm gonna go with one last thought. So, thinking about conversation starters, mini forms, agent builder, workflows all together, what do you think success looks like for a team using these new features over the next 6 months?
I think success will look like something where you have started to figure out your system, how you operate within your team, and actually starting almost building out those systems inside of Pencil. So what do I mean by that is every organization and every team kind of have somewhat of a unique approach to how they might develop a campaign or explore an idea that essentially goes through all the different cycles to end up either into somewhat of a formulated idea that can be explored or actually all the way through production and exploration in that sense. I think taking a step back and really trying to understand what is the system, what does it look like for each stage of phases that we go through to get from point A to B, and then using workflows and Pencil to essentially start mapping that as a tool that can be slotted in for your own way of working. If you're able to really map that out, you can probably start working a lot faster, go from idea to concept much quicker, taking advantage of current trends that you might want to explore. Anything online today goes incredibly fast, and a trend can last for 5 days. Unless you're actually able to come up with something within 48 hours, you might already have missed that trend. So I would say harnessing Pencil as a tool in that sense of understanding the repeatable workflows that you have and be able to build those out so that you can execute on those much faster, and then do similar things for trends or any topical or insight-based information that you want to take advantage of, will set you up for success in a way of quickly going from some form of insight or trend into an idea or concept that you then can go and execute full production against, is probably where I see you setting yourself up for success. And then how that ties into conversation starters, similar to what I said earlier. You can kind of use this as to start getting the right mindset of, how do I work with agents? How should work potentially be handed off from one agent to the next? And how can I then replicate that within my own system to ensure that the agents that I'm working with and the workflow that I have set up inside of Pencil mimics what we typically do within our organization outside of Pencil today.
Perfect. There's so much to be excited about here.
I really think so.
Yeah, I really would advise anyone listening who's already a user to just get in there and start trying out all of these new features. They really are a game changer in every way. I've had so much fun playing around with my different potential flows. We are at time. Thank you so much for joining me, Doug. It's been a pleasure as always.
Pleasure's all mine.
And thank you everyone who has tuned in. And I'm sure we'll be back in no time at all with more of our new features discussions. Thank you, everyone.
We should do a plug for that community as well, because that is an awesome place to go and find resources and engage with other users and team members.
Thank you, Doug. You're doing my job for me. I almost forgot to plug the community. So check it out at community.trypencil.com. Right. Thanks, everyone, and have